All right, folks. Good to be back with you here on No Sound Bites Allowed on the Exceptional Conservative Network. I hope you do check out some of the other artists who are here on the Exceptional Conservative Network. It's a great program. Do check out Ken McClinton with the Exceptional Conservative Show. Check out Dr. Jane Ruby and so many others, and just so many people I just can't name them all. And I hope you do check that out. I do hope that if you are in the Binghamton area, please drop down by the Belmar Pub or the Park Diner. These are friends of mine. This is not a paid advertisement. I just enjoy their establishments and I love going there. Great food, great people. I do advise you to check it out. I want to get right to this, folks. Okay, breaking news just came out, again, just about an hour or two ago. We saw that Ted Cruz is talking about this as well. Ted Cruz, according to The Hill, and actually on Twitter, Ted Cruz stated that this is ridiculous. YouTube is not the Star Chamber. Stop playing God and silencing those voices you disagree with. This will not end well. And he's referencing Steven Crowder, who has the program on YouTube, Louder with Crowder, versus Carlos Mazza. Now, let me give you a basic idea of what this is all about. How did we get here? There is Carlos Mazza is a voice spokesman, a podcaster for Vox. Vox is an arm of NBC. NBC put $200 million into Vox. So you can't tell me that they're independent. That means Vox is owned by NBC. They are an arm and an extension of that corporate giant. $200 million? Yes, you are an arm of a corporate giant. And so they are at the bidding of that. And NBC is very much into the gender identity politics as per Carlos Mazza and Vox. And Mr. Carlos Mazza is a gay Hispanic and a male. So Steven Crowder, if you have watched the show, if you watch Louder with Crowder, Steven Crowder is a stand-up comedian. He does stand-up comedy. He also does a podcast, a video, on YouTube. He has his own channel. It is ranked 2,000 out of the 50 million channels on YouTube, which is pretty good. It's not as good as Vox, which has its advertising and its support pushed by NBC with $200 million. He also has Mr. Crowder, Steven Crowder, is independent. He is a small business. He's like me. He's like you. He doesn't have $200 million being thrown at him by one of the major media companies. He makes his money by selling mugs and t-shirts. And that's the problem. Well, one of the problems. The other problem is that he makes fun of the far left. He disagrees with them. He's a conservative, a Republican, and he makes fun of the left, in particular, Carlos Mazza, using terms about Carlos Mazza that Carlos Mazza uses about himself. He calls Carlos Mazza a queer. Carlos Mazza calls himself a queer. He calls Carlos Mazza gay. Well, Carlos Mazza admits and has a Twitter handle, which is that he is the gay wonk. He admits, and this is part of his thing, he is gay. So Mr. Crowder highlights the errors of what Mr. Mazza is talking about on a regular basis, using the exact same terms that Mr. Mazza uses about himself. And it's bad. And because Louder Crowder is using the same terms that Mr. Mazza is using about himself, because Mr. Crowder is saying that and saying how wrong he is and why he is wrong about some of the positions and views he has from the far left. Well, because Mr. Crowder has done that well and ranks 2,000 out of 50 million in YouTube, and because he is an independent voice, well, that means that you need to shut him down. Or at least this is the position of Mr. Mazza, which after looking at $200 million, in fact, is the point of view of NBC. Now, why did Senator Ted Cruz get involved with this? Why is he saying that this is YouTube playing God and silencing people? Well, that's where I was going with in the last segment. I was talking about none other than Tim Pool. Also, a very good, very successful, independent voice on YouTube. And he's mentioning that this isn't about anti-gay slurs, because they aren't anti-gay slurs. They're not slurs when it's something that someone has said about themselves. And that's just a fact. And Mr. Poole goes into great detail. And I advise you check out this article that he's put out there on YouTube, which is "The Mass Censorship Hits YouTube in Wake of Vox Stephen Crowder Battle." And in that, he goes into great detail how this is actually a battle between NBC and the public and silencing that voice. NBC, the mainstream networks, have been dying for decades. If you're as old as me, I'm 51, there used to be 3 channels and PBS. That's it. It was ABC, NBC, CBS, and then you had PBS. Now we have HBO, Showtime, we have 500 channels on cable, we have cable news, we have YouTube, we have Twitter, we have social media, we have outlets, and are able to directly communicate the news like I am right now, and to expand on the ideas rather than relying on ABC, CBS, NBC, where we get a minute and a half to talk about an issue. I spent more time talking about the event that happened at Crandall Street that I was covering than you will see on the news tonight on any of those channels. My live stream on Facebook of the event and people speaking at the event is going to have more content and be more complete than any news station locally covering that event. And that is true of every event. I've done debates where I have broadcast word for word, just recently, the DA's debate over at SUNY Broome. I broadcast that word for word. You can see it on my YouTube channel. Every word of that debate and every question that was asked, every answer that was given. And if you look at the regular news media, you will get a minute and a half summary of what some news editor thought was important. Now, why does this matter? Well, because NBC wants ads. The major media want ad revenue. And for every person who's looking at YouTube, who is listening to Tim Pool, that is listening to Stephen Crowder, that is listening to me, or for you, if you have a channel, they lose advertising dollars. And they lose control of the narrative that's out there. If they want to talk about gender identity politics being positive, they can't do that if you're listening to someone who says, well, that actually is discriminatory, that is actually racist and sexist, as we have discussed many times and in many different formats, and that you can see many people talk about, that this is an ideology of segregation and in nullification of voters. So this is why it's important. It is the corporations with their agenda, motivated by money, saying people can't talk. So Mr. Mazza said that he's going to go out there and because another person on YouTube who is an independent is using the same terms he uses about himself, and because he's taking away from the audience of NBC and the companies that NBC has bought, like Vox, that they need to silence those people and to remove their advertisers. And what happened is YouTube decided, in listening to that, in watching the pressure from NBC, which is an advertiser for YouTube, in looking at their agenda, the identity politics agenda, they decided that, hey, you know what we'll do? We're going to change the rules on YouTube. Okay? And they did. They didn't ban Stephen Crowder, because if they had banned Stephen Crowder, well, that would go to the same issue that Ted Cruz brought up when he asked Facebook, when he asked Twitter, when he tried to ask Google, are you manipulating your algorithms? Are you silencing the voices of Republicans and conservatives, including members of Congress? And each of those organizations said yes. Twitter has actively affected 600,000 accounts and suppressed them and denied them the ability to speak to the public, including members of Congress who are elected and are trying to talk to their representatives. That is a fact. It is a fact that Facebook actively has programmers and programs and algorithms that categorize people based on things like their skin color or their religion and put one above the other, so that if you're talking about, if your issue or your post is about a black person, but there's an article that's about someone who's gay, the gay issue will be promoted and the black issue will be suppressed. That's from Facebook itself. They categorize you. You are not an individual. Your issues are not individual issues. Your voice is nothing more than one big category that is only worth as much as they deem it to be. And if they don't like it, they will suppress it. Because they learned from Alex Jones and the others that they had removed, extremism. If we get rid of people that we deem as extreme, that we don't like, well, there's a big backlash. So instead, they want to hide them. They want to deny them the ability to make money, and they want to deny them the ability to be seen and heard. That's censorship. That is censorship in the extreme. And that is a problem. And I'll explain why I think that. Because here we go. This is from YouTube itself. This is the rules, the YouTube official blog from Wednesday, June 5th, when they made their changes. This is in reference to removing more hateful and supremacist content on YouTube. This is YouTube's doctrine itself. And YouTube says, in part, quote, specifically prohibiting videos alleging that a group is superior in order to justify discrimination, segregation, or exclusion based on qualities like age, gender, race, caste, religion, sexual orientation, or veteran status. These are problems, okay? And they mentioned that they would remove content that would deny well-documented events like the Holocaust or shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary took place. Okay, what does that really mean? Let's really think about that for a second. What they just said is that if I want to talk about, and I have, the Green New Deal, and I tell you, and I am debunking the things that are being said about the Green New Deal, when I tell you that it is absolutely ludicrous to believe that we will get rid of every single one of the cars, the 260 million cars in this nation, and that everyone and every plane in this nation, and that everyone will be able to just take a train to Hawaii, that this is in 10 years, that this is a stupid idea, that this is unrealistic, that we are going to take over 71 million homes and retrofit them within 10 years to be working off of nothing but solar and wind energy, that this is a pipe dream and it is unrealistic financially, even in terms of just materials and personnel to actually do this, that it is a lie and you're being used to promote a political agenda because it can't be done and it will not make your life better if it is done. For expressing that point of view, well, there are people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that will tell you that that is discrimination, that I am picking on people because her Green New Deal is focused on, what did she call it, troubled and targeted peoples, disgruntled, and she basically says it's in the Green New Deal, and I don't have it in front of me right this second, but basically she's saying that it affects people who are black and minorities and poor more than anyone else, which there isn't evidence of that. That's not exactly true. But beyond that, so if I'm disputing the Green New Deal, then that would mean that I am breaking YouTube's regulations. I may have broken YouTube's regulations because I used the term queer or I used the term gay, which is a discussion. I'm not accusing anyone. I'm actually using a discussion and referencing facts. But because I mentioned these words, that can be considered discrimination if someone feelings get hurt and then they decide, well, we don't want Mike to be able to speak anymore. We don't want to hear his voice anymore. More importantly, if they think that I've made a very good argument about it or I've revealed information that's important and they don't like that, they can silence me. Because I'm talking about the violations over at Binghamton City Council, and I am reporting on the news that an individual has a history of ethics violations, because someone may not like that, they can then say, well, YouTube should suppress this and no one should be able to hear about the ethics violations that have occurred. That's what the regulation from YouTube is saying. That's the problem. That you are no longer being able to hear the news. You will only hear the approved news from the approved sources. That is a problem. And the only reason why that will happen is because the approved organizations want to make more money. And they want to lead you down a path to a single choice in your politics. That you have no voice and you have no other opportunity. And they will deny, they won't remove me. They will just make it impossible to see what I'm saying. They will make it impossible for me to make a living, which I do not at this moment, to make any money. That I will not be able to monetize this and that I will not be able to be seen. So that I have no voice and I am pushed out, effectively destroying me. And we've seen this in a lot of governments, authoritarian governments around the world, where they effectively silence and isolate people so that they have no choice. They cannot survive. It's a way of killing someone. If I lock you in a room and you have no ability to get food or water, you will die. Did I kill you? No. That's not death. You just happen to die because I've denied you the ability to sustain yourself. How is that any different? That is exactly what we're seeing happening here. This is exactly what YouTube has now said that they will do. On the most ambiguous terms that you could possibly name. Anything can be specifically prohibited because it alleges superiority of one group over another. And why is that bad? If I believe that my basketball team, if I think the Yankees are the best team out there, and I am willing to support that and say they are the best team, well, then I am giving them superiority over another group. And you can say that's because of age of the players or the gender of the players, the race of the players, the caste, the religion, sexual orientation, veteran status. Someone can allege that's the only reason why I like the Yankees, because of one of those reasons, and therefore it's discrimination and I should be removed or suppressed by YouTube. Think about it. You pick a sports team, someone can shut you down. If you have a sports channel, someone can shut you down. If you like a video game, someone can shut you down. YouTube can shut you down because someone will say, well, that's sexist and you are supporting one group over another group and that's wrong. And that's now part of the rules of YouTube. No one thought of it that way, did you? No one thought of it as, wait a minute, because I like a baseball team or I like a video game or I like a TV show, well, now I am putting one group over another group and therefore YouTube can say, that's good enough and get rid of you. That's dangerous. That's dangerous. But it gets even worse because YouTube goes on to say in their section on reducing borderline content and raising up authoritative voices, they go into this fact that YouTube gets to decide what's borderline content. Content that might be objectionable. On what basis? Who knows? It's the way the YouTube reviewers or the algorithm works that day. They might find it objectionable. Like I said, just by the content of the terms that I have used, which are facts, without accusing anyone of anything or saying anything about someone's lifestyle, just because of the terms that I have used so far, we could see YouTube decide that they want to suppress me, that they want to eliminate my voice. Or someone can go and listen to this video, challenge it with YouTube, and suddenly I will not be able to be seen because it's borderline just because I mentioned a fact and reported events in the news as it exists. And think about this. you are even worse off. Because you may not even know why they're going to suppress you. You may not even know that it's happening to you. I check a lot of data all the time to see exactly where I am, how it's being received. This is what I do. I've been doing it for 12 years. And I have seen the suppression on Google. I've seen the suppression on Facebook. I have seen the bias that YouTube and Twitter have exerted. And I have seen it affect numbers that most people may not notice because they don't do this every day for a living. And in fact, I don't even do this to make money, but I do this. But we have to say to ourselves, if they are actively suppressing this, and these are the stories that we know about. Again, Steven Crowder, he's got 2 million. He's number 2 million. He's at, 2,000 out of 50 million people. He is the top tier. He's almost there with Vox, thanks to the $200 million given to it by NBC, possibly $600 million. So their investment, they're getting pushed and promoted. And what is YouTube doing? YouTube is promising that if you have content that they deem on any given day, without any specific rule being broken, that they don't like it, they're going to go out, and this is it right here in their comments. They say, for example, if a user watching a video that comes close to violating our policies, this isn't a hand grenade. What does comes close mean? What does that mean? It's like a hand grenade. Okay, comes close to violating our policies, our systems may include more videos from authoritative sources like top news channels in the Watch Next panel. Now, what they left out is they're also going to suppress that channel so that you can't see it again. So they're going to take away your ability to ever see that content again. Even if you agreed with it, they're going to remove their ability to be able to speak and to have their voice heard. And they're going to substitute the approved information that YouTube wants. They're going to give you, they're going to force feed you. That's propagandizing. That's propagandizing. Authoritative nations around the world, we fought wars against countries that decided that this is the thing you should know. The Soviet Union did this with the government approved voice, and you didn't get to have anything to say. You know, I had an interview a long time ago, back in 2010. I was speaking at an event, and I was speaking with a priest, and he from the Soviet Union. He has a great joke about how you could vote in the Soviet Union. You know what your choice was in the old Soviet Union? The dead guy or the guy that the government approved of. But you were free. You could make any choice you want. Well, this is the same thing with YouTube. You have a choice. You can look for this content that they've completely hidden and demonetized and tried to destroy, or you can watch their approved content that they're shoving at you every other second, saying this is all you can see. But it's free. You can do either one. And they have a free platform. I'm sorry, that's not a free platform. They're lying to the public. They're misleading you. This is wrong. This is destroying the First Amendment. This is destroying freedom. This is violating their own rules that they are publicly promoting. If they are a free platform, and I understand, this isn't like with Twitch where they're protecting children against pedophiles. We're talking about grown adults having conversations, and that if someone doesn't like it, that's one thing. You have the right not to ever check out that channel again. That's your choice. But it shouldn't be YouTube's choice to say that that person will never be able to speak again. Imagine if someone did that to you. Imagine tomorrow when you go to work and your boss has decided that because they didn't like the way you said something, no one else can talk to you again. Sounds far-fetched? Well, no, it's not. Because it's happened in the world before. I don't know. Maybe I rambled too much at the end of the show. When we've talked about this for about half an hour, I probably will talk about this again and actually in more detail on Saturday on our show because we're going to be on from 12 until 2, and we're going to be able to go into more detail about this and I want to hear from what you think. I want to hear what you think. Is YouTube right? Has YouTube made the right decision? Let me know let's have that discussion, and let's talk about it on Saturday at noon, and we'll go forward from there. But until then, I wish you the very best. I hope YouTube doesn't pick on you. I hope Facebook and Twitter don't shut you down. And come back on Saturday. I'll talk to you soon.